You know, when we started with the boat, and Chris Serino was in very early. We hired Chris probably about a year after we started building to sort of lay out the details of the educational program. And when we did that process, our long-term goal was to say, hey, let's get the boat completely full and booked with kids going out and learning out the bay. And we thought that was going to take forever. That seemed like an insurmountable goal, to be honest. And amazingly, we had attained that within about 24 months of launching the boat. And the boat has been fully booked ever since. I mean, we have never had a problem getting kids on the boat. And what that showed us was that there was a big demand for the types of programs we offer to get kids out into the environment, to get them out of the classroom, to teach them about history in a way that's a little bit more dynamic than what you can do in the classroom. And we found as long as we could make it affordable for public schools, there was an enormous need for it. So we started in 2004 just building on components to that Sultana experience. And it's been so successful now that actually most people don't know this. Sultana represents about 30% of the kids we work with during any given year. And we've been growing. We are now, I think it's about 6 times bigger than we were 10 years ago in terms of capacity to work with students. And that includes canoe and kayak programs. And when I say students, I should include teachers. We're one of the biggest providers of environmental science and history teacher training in the state of Maryland at this point. We do a lot of curriculum programs in the schools. We do a lot of land-based programs where we'll take kids out into marshes, do marsh restoration. We have our hands in a lot of different pots at this point. We have a lot of opportunities to expand our teacher training programs, but it's very logistically difficult for us because we don't have the facilities we need to do that. We could have expanded our summer programs by 100% this summer, but we don't have, again, the logistical things that make that possible. And then when it comes to our core stuff, the school programs, at this point, most of our school programs take place during the more moderate weather months, say April 1st through middle of November. That leaves about 50% of the school year off limits to us, where we really don't have anything to offer to schools, and we didn't like that. There's still plenty to do outdoors in the winter, but you need some sort of fallback. You need a place where you can bring the kids, if it's snowing or raining, afterwards to dry them up and warm them off. We also want to reach, most of the students we reach now are 3rd grade through 7th grade. We want to expand what we do to include kids from kindergarten through high school, but we don't have the facilities to do that. If we're going to do, say, science programs for high school level kids, we need a real lab. We need to be able to have the ability to go out into the field, look at an environment, collect samples, and then come back and do a more thorough study that can only be done in sort of laboratory conditions. Or on the opposite side of that, if we want to work with kindergarten kids in the summer and it's 100 degrees outside for a week, you can't take a 5 or 6-year-old for a week outside in 100-degree weather. You need a place to go inside and outside with them. We're taking 2 big leaps over the next few years. One is we're going to expand our capacity by 100% between now and 2020. So we will serve twice as many kids in 6 or 7 years as we do now. And to do that, we need to develop a lot of new programs. We need to add some staff. And probably most interestingly, in terms of Chestertown, is we need to add a facility. We need a facility that we can base our programs out of. So our plan is to build an education center in downtown Chestertown, about an 8,000 to 10,000 square foot facility that will become the home base for everything that we do. Chestertown has some really unique advantages for the type of programs that we do. And it's a very safe, walkable community with an enormous amount of resources in terms of the college, in terms of just the history of the town, the physical history that's here in the town. That's a great thing for kids to see that they're not exposed to that often. It's a great place to operate a boat like Sultana from. You have the Chester River, which is beautiful, but it's very protected, so we can operate early in the year it can be howling wind. It can be blowing 35 knots out on the bay, where we can never even think of bringing kids out there, but we can take them out on the Chester River, which is great. Well, I will tell you, we have a building right now that we own, and we pay taxes on it every year, and we've always paid taxes on it. I can't tell you automatically what we're going to do with our new facility, but we recognize that the town does a lot in terms of making our business possible, and I cannot imagine that we're not going to contribute our fair share to the town, which we do in a lot of ways. We bring in an enormous amount of revenue to the town. Most of our funding comes from outside of the 21620 area code. And we've had a very good partnership with the town for things like downrigging weekend, for our dock facility when we built it with the shipyard. And, you know, we do not do well if Chestertown doesn't do well. I mean, Chestertown is the backdrop for our programs, for a lot of our programs. And we have as large an interest as anyone else in seeing that the downtown area remains vibrant. We looked very hard, actually, for when we searched for a site for our building, to try to find a location that was the least disruptive. You know, we didn't want to take a prime commercial space, and the space that we have contracted for on Cannon and Cross Streets, while a beautiful space, is not what we thought of as being in the prime retail part of the town. It was close to it, but it wasn't, you know, we weren't taking out a major retail building with a long retail history. You know, that had been, it's now a real estate office. It had been a printing plant for many, many years going back. So it doesn't have a history of being a retail spot. And I will tell you, we're going to bring thousands of people into town for our programs who will go to the retail businesses and will go to the restaurants. One of the big missions that we have is to teach children about the Chesapeake Bay and to value it. And we thought, as an organization that does that, we really didn't have much of a choice other than to make our building as environmentally friendly and have as little of an impact as we possibly could. But even beyond that, if, you know, in this age where the population of the Chesapeake Bay watershed continues to grow, everybody who lives in that watershed is going to have to take steps over the next several decades to reduce their impact on the Chesapeake. And one of the main areas that people have control of is their primary residence where they live. So in addition to just making it so that we have the minimal impact, we want to design the building so it is a teaching tool that it can show kids and adults alike, hey, these are the things that are coming down the road. These are the things that we're all going to need to do to reduce our impact on the bay. And they're not that hard, and they're not that expensive. They used to be super expensive, but the cost of a LEED Platinum building compared to what it was 10 years ago has really gone down to where it's not a huge premium. It's still ambitious to do a LEED Platinum building. I mean, we're going to have to get, you know, and it's going to be very interesting to try to do a LEED Platinum building in a historically sensitive area like downtown Chestertown. And that's probably where we're going to be breaking ground in partnership with the historic district. And I say in partnership very consciously, because it is going to be a partnership, because there are going to be interesting choices that we're going to face in this building that are unlike too many that have had to be made before in approving a building for downtown Chestertown.
So give me an example of that, where it's going to be...
the use of solar panels, for instance. In order for us to be a LEED Platinum building, we're probably going to have to get about 30% of our power from solar panels. And, you know, that is not... It's certainly something they have addressed. It is very thoughtfully laid out in the Historic District Commission guidelines. But again, each building is unique, and I'm actually jumping the gun a little bit here. I'm going to tell the Historic District Commission in a couple of days about our plans to do this. But they have been very helpful so far, and I hope that they will see this as an interesting challenge, not just for us, but for them as well. How do you make an environmentally sustainable building that is appropriate to an 18th century historic district? We saw the need for this back in 2007 and 2008, and the economy made it impossible to do something like this. And as a result, right now, we're struggling every day with our programs to find space, you know, to do our programs. We rent a lot of space. We have to move. We do programs often in St. Michael's or in Annapolis or in Baltimore that we could be doing here. because we don't have the right facilities. So we are really excited. The prospect of serving twice as many kids and of really working with the Kent County Public Schools and the Queen Anne's County Public Schools and the Caroline Counties and the Dorchesters and the Talbots and the other providers, the great providers of outdoor education programs like the Echo Hills or the Pickering Creeks or the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, to work together to create a real thoughtful infrastructure for environmental and, for us, history education for K through 12 kids in the Eastern Shore. That's really exciting to us. And